In this lesson, we're going to be looking at extend. Now, extends actually provides you a whole bunch of power within object-oriented programming, because the whole idea of object-oriented programming is that even if you want to create another class and maybe there's something slightly different in this class, you don't want to have to be repeating all of this code. So the idea is minimalize the code, and the best way to do that is to reuse classes. So build your classes, design your classes in a way that you can reuse them over and over again just by extending it, and then within that extension you can make the adjustments that you need to make it entirely different and still keep the same basic functionality that you need that you've originally created within that class. What I mean by this is, let's say, going back to the previous example where we had a Honda, we had a Lamborghini, and we have a Hummer. So the Lamborghini and the Hummer are going to use just about as much gas per trip. So when we go down here to the code, we see that it uses 350 units of gas per trip. On one trip, 350. So it's the same as the Lamborghini. But the difference between the Hummer and the Lamborghini is the Hummer has a bigger gas tank. So even though the Lamborghini's used 350 units of gas, the Hummer's used 350 units of gas, the Lamborghini only has 150 units of gas left, whereas the Hummer has 650 units of gas. And the way that we're doing this is we're actually just doing another car and we're extending this blueprint and then running the construct method, which, as we talked about before in a previous lesson, when this object gets initiated, it runs construct, and it's not necessarily related to the construct that's within this object. So we want to be able to set that and use that construct within this initialization. So the reason that we have to do car make again, as we did up here, and it's not going to translate through, is that when we are creating this new object, we need to pass through the car make. And passing that through this way, as well as passing it through this way, so that gives us car make, and we set that car make value in there. And here we've got the other property that we're resetting. So initially within the original blueprint, its gas and engine is 500 units. So we didn't like that, and we set it to 1,000 units. So when this object gets created, it changes the gas in the unit to 1,000 units, and that's why when we still use 350 units of gas on the trip, we've got a whole bunch more gas left. And here we've just got the same thing, so we're using that class method, car maker. As you can see here, this class doesn't have car maker available within it, but this one does. And this is why, since we've extended it, we get use of it, and we're able to access car maker within this format as well. So even if, going back to the public, private, and protected, so even if car maker was protected, we would still get this. Sorry, no, we would get an error there because of the fact that it's protected. So if we were calling this within this class, we could use protected, but it has to be public because we're only accessing it publicly here. So this gives us the ability to access that class and that information publicly, and if we were to use this method, if we had another method back into the code, you might want to make car make protected, and that gives you the ability to use that within the extended class, using it within the construct here. So we're accessing actually this car make, and as you can see, I did change that to protected, and when I do go out and I refresh the page, I can see that everything still runs. And we need to keep these as public, these methods as public, because we are accessing them outside of the actual class and accessing them in the object, so we do want to print those out and have access to those. So anything that's being used within the class itself can be private, If it's being used in the extended class, it can be protected. And if it's being used outside of the classes altogether, then it should be public. And then, of course, if within another car class we wanted to have additional methods, we could, or customized methods that would only apply to the Hummer, we could add those in there as well. And if we wanted to have only methods that worked within the original class, we would add them in here and we could refer to them as public. But if we want the methods to go across both classes, the extended classes as well, then we would have to go with protected or with public, depending again how we're looking to access it. So there is quite a bit of planning when you are creating your object-oriented structure, and it is important to take a look at this and see which ones you're going to be accessing within the planning of your application to make it work efficiently, as well as planning out which parts of the class, what you want to extend within the class, and what you're going to need to reuse, and what code you're going to have to write off of the original code that you had within class. So whole idea, keep it at a minimal, but also plan it out well so you can minimize the amount of code that you're doing and still get the same results that you're looking for when you're creating your applications.